The woman who's running the show is my good friend, Howard Bison Sistren, Chicago, Windy City. The list is too long of things that this woman has done. Erica Hubbard. Please give it up for my girl, Erica Hubbard.
Okay, I was getting ready to say who let the dogs out, but they here for real. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? All right. We got a special guest in the building. All right. I think he says we can get started. That's a he, right? Okay. Yeah, it felt like a he. It was some he energy going on there. It's been a couple years since I've had the opportunity to sit down with Bisa in front of an audience. Actually, it's been since 2021, which was in the midst of her historical and groundbreaking exhibition at the Art Institute of Chicago. And it was historical in that Bisa's groundbreaking show was the most attended show in textiles history of the museum. Bisa was also the first living and artist of color to be exhibited in the spaces that she held in the Michigan Avenue galleries. And yet, so much has changed in just 2 years. So what's different? Well, since 2021, Bisa's work has been shown in a number of other institutions, including LACMA, LA County, where, I'm a Delta, so I'm very petty when I say, I love it, where Forever 2020, DKA, the Chadwick Boseman piece, was installed, which is now at the Spelman Museum. There are pieces at the Smithsonian's, including Harlem Hill Fighters at the Renwick. I Go to Prepare a Place for You at the National Museum of African American History and Culture, among other institutions. She was a standout at both Basel and Basel Miami, showing with this esteemed gallery that we're in right now. And she's had sit-downs with the legendary Deb Willis, Amy Sherald, Khalida Rawls. She's been honored by the Howard University. You know, I mean, introduced by another legend, Felicia Rashad, DKA, America's favorite mom, right before she gave an empowering commencement speech for the College of Fine Arts. And then not to mention, she just shut down Wooster Street last month with the opening of this show here. The world is yours. So much has happened, yet so much has stayed the same. Mm-hmm. And I just don't mean Bisa's ensembles, because she still has those. And the amount of luggage that she still travels with, that's still there. But what has remained the same is the celebration of Black lives, Black bodies, Black culture, the beauty, the strength. The celebration continues even with this exhibition. And for that, we owe you much gratitude, much love and respect for continuing to use your talent to break ceilings, to make space, to show up and out for us, and doing it with all such eloquence, grace, and humility. And for that, we thank you.
Thank you.
So today is about giving Bisa her flowers, but really it's about letting you in on a few of the stories behind these amazing pieces on the walls around you. And so it'll probably be some funny stories, mostly funny, also enlightening, but the goal is to keep it informal. And so now here's a funny thing for you. Bisa and I have not had a single conversation about what we're going to discuss today. Not at all. But I got a little insights into what we were going to discuss today because Bisa has tagged me in about 5 posts on Instagram saying what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to take those posts as my guide to say that we're going to talk about these pieces. But before we get started, the first question I want to ask you, Bisa, is how are you?
I am good. Thank God. I am relaxed and happy to be here. I'm surprised to see so many of you here, and I'm honored. And I want you to know how grateful I am for everybody who traveled, or just even if you walked around the corner. Like, thank you. Thank you.
Look, as long as he's happy, I'm happy. All right, so I know we'll dig into each of these pieces, but I only have one request for you. One, so you have to grant it.
Okay.
It's just we talk about salt and pepper last.
Okay.
All right.
I was thinking,
you can go with
me
that?
to dance? Like, what's the request?
See, I'm not listening to her right now. Okay.
Not beatbox.
All right, so let's talk about this exhibition.
Okay.
My question for you is, how is this exhibition different? And I will probably say in comparison to your last solo exhibition, which was the one at our institute, and specifically I want to get into the works. So we have 2 works here that are from that time.
Yes.
We have our soldier here,
Zouave, right?
and then we have the 3 gentlemen back here.
Upstairs, yes, the mighty gents.
Tell us about this exhibition and why is it different?
So this exhibition is my first foray into the present, or the near present. Ever since I started creating quilts, I was always looking back. Like a lot of us, you get sort of, I don't want to say stuck, but nostalgic and romanticized what happened before. I'm always very curious, what was life like before I was born? Who are these people in my grandparents' photos? Who are my relatives? What was their life like? And then also I always wondered, who are they though? What would it be like to talk to your 3rd great-grandmother once removed? What would she have to say? And this exhibition came, or was thought of, and I started gathering photos and connecting to people during the lockdowns, when we all were online, you're all on your computer. I met all kinds of people on Clubhouse, talking to people from high and low, people from all around the world, and it made me get interested in connecting with living photographers. And also, I became aware that history was now, is now, and that it was happening all around us, from George Floyd's awful murder and Breonna Taylor's murder. I'm like, I don't have to wonder anymore, what was it like to go to the March on Washington?
Right.
Or what was it like to listen to Malcolm X speak on the corner in Harlem? It was real. And it made me start thinking about wanting to document now. So these images that you see a lot of new materials, man-made materials that came about in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, things that came out of, if you've ever looked at a video, if you haven't, of polyester being made, it's a giant glob. And then they stretch that glob, and those stretches become strings, and then those are woven together. I mean, it's gross and weird, but fascinating.
Right.
And I like using those sorts of holographic things So you'll see fabrics that represent now fake fur, Gucci prints. Whereas my older pieces, you would see more African print and more traditional, like upholstery print fabric.
So I also noticed in this exhibition, comparing it to the last one, we got theme music in here, everything. I recall seeing a lot of the reference photos and then
Right.
seeing your images.
Right.
And I noticed where you can see that you took great care to present them in a particular way. If someone's clothing was tattered, you would fix it. You know, you would make sure the hair was looking good. I probably need you right now. But you took great care. And when I look at some of these images on the wall, I see the celebration. And I just see the beauty in that as well. So I also see a shift in how you cared for these individuals and these subjects.
Right. And that came out of the theme to when you are constantly facing a barrage of violence and discrimination, you know, racism, that is so disheartening. And you feel, you know, especially women, sexism, and we see our rights being eroded and books being taken away and lessons not being taught. It
Yeah.
made me start thinking about, how am I going to survive this? Like, what's next? And you start to feel very pessimistic, but then I remember our ancestors, and I think about Harriet Tubman, who just decides to leave like that and then go back? Or Frederick Douglass, or even living civil rights leaders like Angela Davis. But it just reminds me that there were worse times.
Right.
And that there always will be those of us. It's up to us, the groundswell, to say, like, enough, not going to take it, not going to accept it. I think I heard once that in order for a regime to suppress the people have to be suppressed. But if they all refuse, it's over.
Right.
It's over. You can't kill everybody, or you're going to have an empty country. And so I just started thinking about that, how much power we all have, but we don't realize it. There's so much gaslighting. It's like we feel like we're drowning under the pessimism. But in actuality, some young black kids in a park played music, and it became hip hop, which is $1 billion industry.
Right. Right.
There are, when you start looking about how movements begin, how it begins with the children, it begins with the youth who say, like, enough. And it becomes a whole revolt.
Exactly.
And so this collection, it starts with Harriet Tubman as the lead, but all these, I was thinking about that empowerment. Like, you have a lot of power inside of you to change things and to change your reality. And I want to celebrate that, and I wanted to focus on people who know that. So when you see images like Ella, thank you. The young girl, Ella here, she's here twice. Or if you see the young boy in the back with the fur hat, his name is Aksanti. Aksanti is flying, he knows it. And actually he's looking at you like, get it together. If you look at the way his shoe is, he's like, are your shoes like this? Like, no, the answer is no.
Wait, are those Gucci boots?
They are.
Okay.
So I'm thinking about that, though, when people own it and they know it, what a beautiful sight that is. And so you'll see different things in the room of people who are owning that, whether it's with love or with hip hop or with the care of a mother to a child.
Right. So let's start with this couple here.
Yes.
I love them.
Yes, me too.
And they obviously love each other.
They are so in love. That was what drew me into this. Was a portrait that I came across by a photographer named Leon Borzenstein. Leon is still living, and he lives over in the West Coast. And I reached out to him, cold, blind, like, hello, Leon, Mr. Leon, would it be all right if I created a quilt based off of your artwork? And that takes a lot of trust. I'm not one who really likes to do collaborative artwork. So to reach out to somebody who doesn't know you, doesn't know your work, and for them to say yes is a big deal. And what I loved about the portrait was the way they are holding each other. Like, this is all I need in this world. You have me, I have you. I loved the way their hands were on each other. And Leon Borzenstein, if you look him up or if you know his work, he really focused on the middle class or lower middle class, working people, but people who don't necessarily and are not necessarily given beautiful studio portraits. And apparently that photo and this young man with the afro is also part of Leon's work. And he said that he was making portraits for a church directory. And some of the people had interesting looks, and he asked them to come back later and sit for him, and they could wear whatever they want, different clothes than they were wearing during the church day. And so the young couple and the young man, when they came back, the way they were dressed was like their authentic selves. And I loved the love between them, and I also loved seeing this beautiful defiance that he has. He came with a perfectly symmetrical afro. I could tell from the photo that he had just got his goatee edged. It was perfect.
And he had a fresh spray in that afro, right?
Fresh.
Because the glass beads, the glass beads are hidden.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was that afro sheen.
Yeah.
If you know about Afro Sheen, it's mostly mineral oil, which doesn't, now we know, but it doesn't soak into your hair.
No, it just kind of lays
sits there.
Kind of lays right there on
Sparkle.
the top. Yeah.
And I will say, when I did the beard in velvet, I could not get it as neat as his was. Like, I'm not a barber. I was not able to contour my scissors. I did the best that I could.
Yeah, but I love that he coordinated. You had to coordinate.
He had to coordinate.
I love that. But there's something else I want to point out about this image.
Yes.
In the reference photo, what I loved, beyond the couple, I love them too.
Yes.
And obviously I love the lyrics behind it. And let's see if y'all on point with it. Like sweet morning dew. There we go. That's what I love, y'all.
You were my destiny.
There you go. So those are the lyrics behind it. Those are the lyrics. But not only that, there's a baby in the reference photo on the ground. There's a baby.
I'm so sorry.
Where's the baby?
The baby didn't make it.
Baby didn't make it. Baby didn't make it. But there's a baby there. So the couple did not have a babysitter because the baby is there. But the baby is surrounded by love. I did like that. But it was so authentic to see this baby on the floor.
The baby was there on the floor. I'm sorry, but the baby didn't fit in with the aesthetic that I was trying to create. But I hope when you all look at it, you see the love between them. I tried to use some very obvious iconography with the hearts on there. Usually in art class, all the art teachers would say no hearts, no stars, no rainbows. Those are definite no-nos. It's too heavy-handed and too overdone, but I just had to do it. I figured
I love it.
It's mine. I'm putting these hearts on.
No, nothing for me. So before we go to a couple of these behind us, I want to talk about the materials.
Yeah.
There's been a shift in the materials you've used over the last few years. Some have remained the same, but others you've kind of experimented with. Like we talked about the Gucci.
Yes.
Some Gucci, some Canal Street Gucci?
No,
Oh, that's all Gucci.
no.
Okay, this all Gucci. Okay, this is authentic Gucci.
I can't reveal my sources, but that's real Gucci.
Okay, that's real Gucci. So for those of you know, write that down. This is real Gucci. Okay, so we've gone now to designer fabrics that she will not reveal her sources. And we've experimented, as you were talking about Ella a bit.
Yes.
We have Ella 1 and 2. This one is If I Ruled the World.
This is 3 feet high and
3
rising.
feet high and rising.
Yeah.
And so in this one, you're experimenting with the vinyl.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's a part of that. Well, thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
And I'm a 70s baby, but grew up in the 80s. So with this fabric, you'll see, like, we used to wear the jelly jackets, the jelly shoes. I think they might be back. I'm gonna have to get another pair.
They're back?
Yeah, sort of.
Okay.
I don't know. But so I loved finding this jelly fabric, and the lovely part about that is that my niece, Nakaya, is the one who was with me in the fabric store and said, "But why don't you try this vinyl?" And I remember thinking, I can't sew with that. But I could, and it sews so easily, it's felt like butter. And then my other niece, Tuweri, is getting married, and she's marrying a young Nigerian man. She's Jamaican by her heritage is Jamaican. She's marrying a young Nigerian man, and the Nigerian weddings, you know, the fabric, the lace. So I'm affected by the people around me, and while I'm helping her pick out her laces, I'm like, well, why am I not using this? So you'll see, like in this piece, all of that orange fabric is ABCs, and it's all sequins. And if you don't and have never seen a Nigerian wedding, just Google Nigerian wedding. If this was a Nigerian wedding, I think we might all be wearing the same color. Or there'll be like the family in one color and the friends in another color and the neighbors in another color, but we'd all look like a coordinated movie set.
That's when you really find out where you stand,
yes.
huh?
Coordinated.
Okay. Like you thought you were family in the yellow, but they told you to wear green.
Yes. And I will say that working on this show, it was a new experience for me because I actually had help. I had my niece who was helping me, and I also had the support of the gallerist, Jeffrey Deitch, who is here. So you'll see a change in the materiality because I finally had a space. I've always worked in my dining room, and I had my kids doing their homework on one end of the table, and I'm working on one end. Now I have a whole studio. I can buy rolls of fabric, and I have the space and the means where none of those things existed before.
Right.
It would have been about me getting donations. The young man, I call him power to the people, all power to the people. And his afro, again, like that fabric, it cost $700 a yard. So I didn't buy the whole yard. Let me qualify that statement. But I would not have even looked at it. I would have thought, way out of reach, can't do it, can't happen. And so I'm having fun just diving all the way in. I can buy $3 a yard glitter vinyl, right, or $700 a yard Austrian crystal rhinestones. But yeah.
So something else I'm noticing about this work, your subjects are getting more and more stylish. And so we know your background is painting, quilting. Where is this fashion coming in?
The fashion is in the blood, so. I mean, I was born this way, so. My mother was born in New Orleans. My grandmother, Creole women, Creole black women, very much about keeping up with appearances. at going to a Catholic mass and looking a certain way. And my family have been down there since 1700s. And if you know about New Orleans, like, it's very important how you present yourself and how you present yourself as a Black American, because you want to show that I am a high value person.
Right.
So your clothing is very, very important. We like to style and signify. And then my father, who is here, Daddy, where are you? Daddy?
Oh, there he is.
Puppy said, hey. My father's from Ghana, and if you know, big up to Ghana.
Give it up for Ghana. Give it up for Ghana.
Ghana, they're known for their textiles. Well, Ghana used to be called the Gold Coast, so we're already going with the bling from way back. The kings, the queens, the royal consorts, all 24-karat gold was very important. And hand-woven textiles is very important. And some of my ancestors, if you look up northern Ghana too, you'll see women who have painted the outside of their homes in a design. And my ancestors come from the north of Ghana, where the women would decorate their homes with the outside of the home with protective symbols and protective patterns. So it's in me, and it's still coming out.
She woke up like this, y'all. All right. All right, so we're gonna talk about young, gifted, and Black next. And that's this young man behind us, to my right, to your left. But before we go into him, let's talk about these titles.
Yes.
How you're naming these pieces.
Yes.
And I mean, they're not getting these names easily. These names
Right.
have meaning. And so I'm curious about how you go about titling your works in that process.
I mean,
Do they speak to you?
they speak to me, but also I want to say that my father was a college president for 40 years, 39 years, right, Dad? So education has always been very, very important. When he came here to this country was after the liberation of Ghana. And so this was a time where revolutionary thought was very, very prevalent. The Black Power movement, the Black is Beautiful movement, 60s, 70s. This is what I'm growing up out of. And the books on the shelves in my home growing up, I used to look at the titles, and when I first started making quilts, I would just look at the title and I would see like Go Tell It on the Mountain. I'd be like, okay, that'll be here. And then the music, the Motown sound is very much a part of my life. My husband, John, who is here as well, was our MC, DJ, my favorite DJ. Me and John met at Howard back in 91? 91? He was my little booth
He
thing.
said something like that.
Yeah. And he's a DJ. So the music and the titles are a part of my life constantly. Even the title of the show. When one morning we were just sitting down to breakfast and John was playing music and he was playing Nas. And I was listening to the lyrics of the song, "The world is yours, the world is yours. Whose world is this? It's yours." And I thought it was such a beautiful anthem to say, like, it's not just mine. Usually rappers are like, I'm fly, my shoes are fly, my car is fly, my girl is beautiful, I have money. But I liked that song because it was saying, like, it's for you, and how he was shouting out all the different boroughs. And as you know, as New Yorkers, you don't really shout out other boroughs. You're entities unto yourself with all that pride. But for him to shout out other boroughs, it's like, it's like an Israeli shouting out a Palestinian.
Right.
We're not on the same wavelength, but we actually
we
are.
are. Right.
We actually are. And so the titles that you see for this one, Young, Gifted, and Black, I was listening to Nina Simone. I was listening to her version of the song, and John was also playing. I'll ask him. We'll go on deep dives together. I'll be like, well, who else sang it? And then he played the Aretha Franklin version. And you all know Aretha.
Oh, yeah.
She grabs hold of you and won't let you go. And so the piece was created using a portrait of a young man who I found online. I reached out to his relatives and asked him, could I create this piece? This young man, now he's in his late 60s.
Oh.
His name is Kenneth Irish, but at the time he was 12. And the photo was taken in the 70s. And so I was thinking about what is this like? It's a West Indian community in Canada, and it's the 70s, and how they're hardworking people, honest people, good people, and they're putting all this love and attention into this little boy and putting the community around him, putting it all in. And so that's why I named it Young, Gifted, and Black, because he is the product of all of that intention and love.
Love it. So with him still being alive, I mean, I know in the past you've had, I think it was for your piece, The Tea, you
Yes.
had the family that came.
They
it was
found
their,
me.
She was still alive, right?
No.
Or no, she had passed away.
I had a piece that Erica was referencing. It was exhibited at the Art Institute of Chicago, and a young woman went to see it. And when she got there, what was lovely is the Art Institute had the quilt and then the reference photo. And the photo was taken by Russell Lee in Chicago in front of a church in the 40s.
Right.
And so the young woman wrote to me and said, "This is my grandmother," in the photo. And so she was able to tell me about her. She said her name was Lois Jones, but we called her Madeir. And that Madeir was so beautiful that her photo was taken by Russell Lee and ended up in the Jet magazine. And when Jet, I don't think is around anymore, but it was like ebony for those of you who, look, the young people.
I was getting ready to say.
It was like media takeout. For Boston.
A printed version.
Printed.
little mini one.
A little one. And she was so beautiful that she got all these wedding proposals. And so I found the photo, 50 years later, 60 years later, and made a quilt. And when the granddaughter posted it, she stood next to the quilt and she told the story, and then we got connected.
Right.
But she said in her Facebook that she got a bunch of wedding proposals. So the granddaughter was just as beautiful as the grandmother.
Which is also interesting because we had the Chicago boys.
Yes.
That image. I'm from Chicago. All right. See, it's not just New York in the building. Chicago, we're everywhere, trust me. And you know the Chicago boys image, right? Okay, so it's 5 young boys, they're sitting on a car. And I mean, for years, I've been trying to figure out how is it that we don't know who these boys are? Chicago is so large, yet
Right.
so small. I tell people I grew up in Mayberry because it's like a 2 degrees of separation. But yet we can't figure out who these boys are.
Right.
And since that exhibition, like one by one, I feel like we've been identifying who these young men are and how they're connected to someone. I just recently found out I went to elementary school with someone who's related to one of the young men. And so I'm curious with some of these images, as you're pulling them because they speak to you, not realizing that some of these folks are alive.
Some of these folks are definitely alive. Aksanti is alive, Ella is alive, Salt and Pepper are alive, thank God.
You can't talk about them right now.
Yes, I'll wait. Questlove is alive.
Right.
The Bill Russells.
What's their
recently
reactions
passed.
when they see themselves in your work?
I think it's difficult looking at yourself sometimes.
Anybody want Bisa to do them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, do you think it'll be difficult for you to see yourself? Oh, okay. I'm surprised by that reaction,
I
actually.
mean, they're like, thank you, but they're not like falling out.
I would fall out, actually. John, come get me. Like, yeah, I would fall out.
Yeah. They're happy and they're honored, but I would say maybe they feel a little bit shy about it. It's just an interesting thing.
Okay. Well, let's talk about, this is a very iconic image behind us. Not Salt and Pepper, the next one.
Yeah.
Because we're not talking about
Colored
Salt and Pepper
entrance.
right now. Last year you were I guess you'll forever be a Gordon Parks Fellow.
Yes.
And that's something to clap for. And so with that fellowship, you were free to dig in the archives
Yes.
of Gordon Parks.
Yeah. That was amazing.
That's amazing. And
What did
this
you wanna-
is one of his, I mean, you all are familiar with this image.
Yeah.
And so I thought very interesting about this image, I mean, beyond the fact it's one of his most iconic, easily recognized, for Bisa, I think this image, let's see, I feel like we're in class now. What's different about this image compared to all the other pieces on the wall? Can you quickly figure it out? What is it?
It's the defiance in the young girl. She's like walking out looking at her over there. Maybe the direction is over here for the color, but they're like not talking about that. She needs to be here. I know it's closer. I know it's probably works better. We need us to actually the old one and the new one. I want to use that one.
Now that's an amazing answer. I love it. It was brilliant,
Yeah.
but it was way too smart for what I was thinking about. Way too smart. But I got you. I could tell. What is it? So you brilliant too. You brilliant. You're brilliant. It's something very simple. What is it?
I
That's
thought I heard it.
You know what? Y'all are so smart, but let me tell y'all. There's a background in it. There's a sign. There's a sign. Do you see any other signs? Any other backgrounds? But here's the thing about that image. If you removed that sign, would you have recognized that image? Some of you are so smart, yes you would, but most of us would not have recognized it. And so I recognized that for Bisa, I've never seen background in your work. So I know that this piece presented a bit of a challenge for you. So can we talk about this one?
And I want to say, well, they're both right. Because
I said my version
Look,
of the
Erica.
answer. I never said he was wrong.
Erica,
Didn't I say it was a beautiful, intelligent answer? I said it wasn't my answer.
I'm saying that this is the only one where they are not looking at.
That's
us.
true.
They don't, and it's because it's Gordon Parks' image.
Right.
So I'm vibing off of and trying to emulate what he said. And the colored entrance sign, it's, if you get a chance, if you haven't, you look up close, the fabric that I use is a green fabric with white flowers, but they're in clusters and they're looking like clusters of cotton. And in the original photo, this is a young woman and her niece, and they're standing in front of a department store. But they're standing outside of the department store. The door's open and they're standing by the colored entrance. There's a big sign over their heads that is bigger than that sign. Actually, in the perspective, the sign is bigger than the young woman's body, the aunt's body.
Right.
So I shrunk it a little, but the way Gordon Parks was so much a master at narrative and telling a story, this series was called The Segregation Story and debuted in Life magazine. Gordon Parks was the first staff black photographer at Life magazine. And when he presented the story, he went down to Shady Grove, Alabama, and stayed with a particular family. And so both of these quilts that are side by side are based off of that series, and the women are most likely related. While he photographed the story, I think the story is that they were getting threats, and he had to call some white staffers from Life to travel down, meet him in Shady Grove, and he had to hide at the base of the car, the bottom of the car, and they had to drive him out of town because the threats against the Life, although they were saying this is a segregated town, we're proud Southerners and I guess segregation forever, they didn't really want that to be shown in Life magazine.
Right.
Because he wasn't telling any lies. The photo is what it was. So if you stand by it and that's what you live like, why are you wearing a hood? And why are you hiding?
Right.
And why are you an internet gangster? So I needed to have the sign because it's so oppressive.
Yeah.
The woman is so flawless. She's so beautiful. Her skirt is flawless. Her niece is flawless. And apparently what she said, the only thing she didn't like about it was that her slip was showing on her sleeve. So imagine that. Like,
Right.
we're like slip.
Right.
You know. She's so flawless. And she's at a moment of contention. Do you take your niece into the colored entrance? You're all dressed up. You're impeccable. You deserve to go in the front, like Vladimir said. Or do you explain to your niece, this child who's so innocent and lovely and
Right.
full of light and promise, this special day, do you tell her that actually we are considered less than and we have to go into this side entrance? So she said that's what she was thinking about at the moment. Do you go in? Or do you burst the bubble around this child?
'Cause
And
she
also,
doesn't know.
as an aunt, is
Right.
that your right or
Right.
responsibility? Do her parents want her to know? Or do you just go in and pretend?
Right.
So that's the image. They're beautiful. I wanted to show them as I think of them, but that sign has to hang over, and the colored entrance, the red, it was a red neon sign, but a friend of mine, Ellen Weisbord, suggested this other red fabric with lines in it that look like veins, just to talk about. It's more than just saying go into another entrance,
Right.
but you will face mortal danger if you cross this line.
Right. So I was looking at the hair from Mobile, Madonna.
Yes.
This was the first time I saw this hair pop up.
Yeah.
How
The
did you
hair.
come up with this hair?
I mean, the hair is so important. Hair means
what kind of
everything.
fabric is this?
This fabric, that's Dutch wax. So a lot of African fabric that you'll see, it was created as basically a knockoff fabric to the woven fabric in Africa, made by the Dutch and marketed to Africa. It was cheaper, more prevalent, easier to make. Now a lot of this type of fabric is made in China. So there's another. It's a very international fabric. Although we look at it, we say this is African.
Right.
And so that fabric, a lot of them, I'll pick them out specifically because they mean things. And I think that fabric was just apples. And so the contours of an apple, I cut it up and felt like it looked like the waves of her hair. But the fabric that she's on, that light blue background,
Right.
is nicknamed, in some countries they call that Rolls Royce. And that fabric can represent beauty and wealth and stability. So I'm using the African fabrics to say something about the person. And then one thing I want to say, Mobile Madonna, her skirt, colored entrance. Her skirt, the young woman, if you see those pocketbooks on it, the name of that fabric is Michelle Obama's purse. So I think it goes without saying, she has to wear that. She would have been like a grandmother to Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
And it was because of her sacrifice and women like her throughout the 60s who stood up and refused to take less than what they deserved, made way for Michelle Obama and for us. So we owe a big thank you, and we owe a lot of gratitude to women like her.
Yeah. Well, since you went back to that piece, let's talk about the little girl's skirt. And I
Yes.
noticed the lollipops. Are those lollipops?
They
Bisa
are
has a thing
lollipops.
for talking about me because I'm from Chicago, and she thinks I'm a bit Southern.
Yeah.
Can I call those lollipops or suckers, or what do you want to call
I would
them?
say lollipop is
Lollipop is okay?
good. You
Okay.
did good.
Okay, I mean, so I'm assuming that's the innocence?
Yes. I try to give each person, as you walk around, the fabric is not just the pattern, but especially the African fabric means something.
Right.
So the lollipops on her is just to give her the innocence and the loveliness of a child. For instance, the band on the aunt's top, that fabric, Obapa, is good woman. So I want to say that she's a good woman. The young man with the fur on, Aksanti,
He's rich.
he's rich. You see his sleeves with those little shapes on it, but that fabric is called the eye of my rival. So like everybody's sweating him. Y'all want to be like him, but you can't. So, me too. I can't be like him either. He's too fly.
What about the design that's behind your title wall as you're walking in?
Oh, you'll see that a lot. That
Okay.
fabric is called, well, the phrase behind it is I run faster than my rivals. So I like to use that fabric to say that if the world is yours, like you will succeed. You will beat whatever rivals you have or whatever enemies that you have. So you'll see that on this young man here. You'll see it repeated a lot. You see his pants. So I'm saying that he will defeat the enemies of racism, discrimination, classism, whatever it is that he needs to win against. I want him to have that. So the fabric is used like a talisman and like a blessing. On his sleeves, that purple fabric, that fabric is known as Kofi Annan's brain. And I will say that it's the African women in the marketplaces in West Africa, they name the fabric. It's made in a factory in China or in Amsterdam or Ghana or Togo, whatever it's made. The women in the marketplace are so powerful. They are community builders, they're business owners, they actually increase and help the lifestyle of many, many people in that area, of successful business women, and they call them Mama Benz or Nana Benz, which is a successful rich woman with a big old Benz. That's what it sounds like. And the Nana Benz named the fabric. So they looked at it and said, we're going to call this Kofi Annan's brain. He gave his final address before he retired, being the UN Secretary General. And so that fabric was born. I run faster than my enemies. And the soldier, this young soldier in the back, his pants, he's wearing, again, you'll see a version of Kofi Annan's brain. So I'm trying to say that I believe that he is intelligent. Look at his gaze. This is a photo that I found in the archives of a young man. It said World War I, soldier, France. And I'm thinking, France, dressed like this?
Right.
So then that spurs like an interest. Let me go back and
Like, what was he
get
doing?
myself together. What kind of soldiers from Africa fought in France? And what did they wear? And why? What does that mean? And I read that he was a Zouave. A Zouave is like an elite unit. They're in the front. Somebody says that in French. Yes. Thank you very much. And those soldiers, they wore those outfits. They were elaborate and beautiful. They actually had a very high rate of dying. I'll say their rate, because they were wearing a red hat on the battlefield. But his other pants leg is called, that fabric is called Nkrumah's pencil. So I'm thinking about Ghana's first president. So that's me like talking to you all about where I'm from, and what are my roots, and what do I admire. This man who was the first president of a free Ghana, who wanted that country to be economically powerful and independent. So when you walk through, just be aware that all of the fabrics, they're meaning something, and I'm trying to communicate to you, Americans. I'm talking to my Africans. I'm talking to Europeans. I'm just talking to everybody in different ways. And the African fabrics are in there almost like also a secret language, because you would have to know. If you know, you know, basically.
All right.
Are we ready?
We gonna talk about our girls?
I think so.
I think it's time, unless you have somebody up there you want to talk about, but I thought we was gonna talk about them.
I feel like
It's time to talk about
in my
Salt and
head
Pepper.
I hear, ooh, baby,
You hear?
baby.
I was gonna say, push it. We get to talk about Salt and Pepper. So one of the reasons why I wanted to leave Salt and Pepper to the end, beyond the fact that it is, an iconic piece. People were walking past. You couldn't walk past it at Basel. You had to stop. You had to stare, take pictures. Try to figure out what were you looking at. But I wanted to talk about this one because the story behind it. Now, only Bisa, when Jeffrey says, we're gonna do a theme, it's going to be goddesses. And Bisa says, salt and pepper. So many other things are probably going through your mind, but she is true to herself in the culture. Bisa says salt and pepper. And so I want to talk about this piece, but I also want to talk about, because I think sometimes when we come into these spaces and we see this work and it's so beautiful, and of course you're going to ask the question, how long does it take you? But we don't really understand what goes into making these pieces. Mm-hmm. It's more than, she's talented, obviously, she's creative, but it's a lot of physical and mental that goes into this work. And so I knew typically, each figure may take you roughly 6 weeks.
Mm-hmm. That's about right.
But this piece was done in 8 weeks with 3 figures. Imagine that. Imagine what it takes, what your body has to endure to bring this piece to life. And so I want us as visitors to this space, collectors, patrons of the arts, I want us to really think about that and recognize that is the work. So when you think about, I can't afford a Bisa, but if you can, you know what you're buying. But I want us to think about that in terms of our artists, our creatives. So let's talk about this piece, this beautiful Salt and Pepper.
Yes, Salt and Pepper, the goddesses. Oh, I wouldn't want to take credit for that, because I was like lamenting, what am I going to do? I got to come up with something quick. And it was John who said, how about Salt and Pepper?
Okay, John.
And when I saw the image, I was like, yes, absolutely. This is what I should be doing. I grew up looking at this image. How many people have seen this photo before? Right.
Yeah.
We used to have it on the walls. It was on the magazines.
Yeah. How many of you still have your bamboo earrings? Yes.
I never had it.
I have some. Well, I didn't have them back then. I wasn't.
Right. I was about to say, my African father was not buying me gold bamboo earrings. Daddy, school is a fashion show. After all. And I wanted to have all the things that they have. The boots, the biker pants, those shiny, look, I have to translate for young people. Shiny, tight pants were called biker pants. The troop jackets or the Dapper Dan jackets, these are all the things that they signified.
They were just so fly.
Everything that we wanted to be. They had the Ghanaian kente hats on, like crowns. They had the Dookie Fat gold rope chains and the bamboo earrings. So they were all about glamour, self-reliance, feminism, pro-black, powerful. They were the first, I think, platinum-selling female rap group. There's still not, if you try to think, there's not that many female rap groups.
Right.
Groups, especially 3. I think we have the City Girls as 2.
I'm too old. I
Temmie.
can't remember.
Where's Temmie? Is there any 3?
It's 2?
There's no rap
so there's
groups
no trio
right now with 3 for women.
We're gonna Google this and we'll come back.
Just 2. Right. Well, Salt and Pepper were unique in that, and they still remain that.
Wait, TLC.
They weren't really rap though. They had a rapper.
First of all, according to Billboard, I think they were rappers on Billboard. Y'all.
No.
Where is John?
No.
Kick the music. We need. Left Eye was a rapper.
1. 1.
Let's go back to Salt and Pepper.
See, Erica's younger than me, y'all. And you could tell.
I'm just saying, according to Billboard, I bet you they're gonna say that TLC is a rap.
Billboard.
I have to look this up.
Erica, Billboard is
I
not
didn't say the culture said it.
standard.
I said Billboard. Okay, we're back. We're back.
Okay, so Salt and Pepper, I did stitch the lyrics behind it because the music is so important, what they were saying. They talked about safe sex. They talked about female empowerment, and they were some of the first to do that. And if you listen to some of the rap lyrics now, I'm not sure. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but I'm not sure exactly what they're talking about.
Right.
And you see that I repeated the motives for the first time. I have a studio, and another studio next to me is a screen artist, a printmaker named Gary Lichtenstein. And Gary is well known for screen printing, and he printed up fabric for me. So this is the first one. Yes, thank you, Gary.
This is custom.
Yes. Where you see the door knocker earrings, you'll see the Black Power fist, you'll see the boom boxes within it. So this is the first time that I can use Black American iconography to say something. So now you all get to be in on the secret language too. And I made it very, very big because I knew that the theme was goddesses. So they're like the Wonder Women to me.
Love it. So at this time, we're going to do some Q&A.
Questions. Yes.
If you have any questions, maybe y'all don't.
Amin has a question.
I think there's questions.
But we don't have another mic.
I think they're gonna.
They have one more?
Mic. Ellery's coming.
Or we can talk loud.
Give us a second. There she is.
Hey.
Do you want to use one of these? Okay.
Well, okay. Yeah, okay. Well, I can pass this back.
Thank you so much, Bisa. Thank you so much, Erica. This has been fascinating. I have a question about the colors in their faces. You always talk about, sorry. Take a step back. You always talk about the use of color to talk about temperament.
Yes.
And you use 3 different colors where one is blue and cool and the other one's in the middle and the other one's red. And I wonder why you did that. Are you trying to tell us something with the colors in their faces?
I am. Thank you for asking that. Well, first I want to say that I use a lot of colors in the skin because that was the way I was taught at Howard University. Thank you. I think I saw a podcast, I listened to a podcast, and they said that the human eye, we can see about 10 million colors. So we think, we're so colorist. You look at me and you're like, that's a black woman for sure, but we all have undertones, and we have our blood within us, we've got our veins, you've got your health. And these things, you see them, but we don't register, and we're not allowed to register it. But you'll hear it in the language, your blue-black, your red bone, your yellow undertone, or your green with envy. But you see these things, and you'll know it when you see somebody who's ill. Right away you notice there's nothing different about their outward color, but something is emanating that is different. You'll also see it in somebody who has passed away. Their skin should be the same. Even if their embalmment is whatever color, they have makeup on, but they don't have the life emanating anymore. So these three, I wanted to show that the name of the album was Hot, Cool, and Vicious. And then thinking of TLC, Crazy, Sexy, Cool, that idea that they each are bringing. But I use the different colors to try to, when you listen to the lyrics, also Pepper, she says, what did she say? She's hot, you can scramble eggs on the floor, right? So I was trying to use like red for her and thinking about the personalities. I don't know them. And then Saul, nowadays, I heard that she's a Christian. She's very much a woman like about peace and about the love of God and Jesus. And so Spinderella is the glue, so she's purple because red and blue, if you mix it, you get the purple. So, yeah. You have to let me know.
Hi.
You have to let me know when you want the mic.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
How are you?
Fine.
First, I wanted to say that the scale of your work is so important for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
I work with young people. I'm an art teacher. And part of the...
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, because you did that too. Some of what's important to me as a process art teacher and artist is that students are able to understand from the artist what their process is. Mm-hmm. So my students have listened to some interviews that you've given. And at the beginning of the year, what we decided to do was we painted our canvases black.
Oh, wow.
And then they started to explore and investigate color.
Thank you for that.
So I wanted to share that.
That's really beautiful. Thank you. And that's something that came from my professors at Howard as well. White does not have to be ground zero. The base or the beginning doesn't have to be white. And any of you all who paint, that canvas is not actually white. It's beige and it's painted white. But we think about it like it's got to be blank. It should be white. But if you paint it a dark color on top, you're going to get very strong with how you express colors because the black is so powerful. And so you see like these bright, intense colors because when I was learning to paint, we weren't allowed to dilute our paint with white. You had to dilute with other colors. And I want to say that color theory, they adopted it in the Black Power movement and the Black art expression, but it came from Europe. If you look at some of the master European painters and you look very close, they're not using a lot of white. The more white you add into the paint, it's not a natural color in that way. All of us here, nobody here is white as paper, and nobody here is black as tar. So if you're actually painting thinking that you're adding white, 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 you're just getting pastel chalk, 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 chalk. That's not how you look, at least not to me. So that's what, thank you for doing that though.
Hello.
Hi.
I love your work. I've loved your work.
Thank
Followed you
you.
for a few years. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm like Bisa, born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s, hip hop head till I die. Absolutely not. That's a whole other conversation. But you speak a lot about the imagery and the messaging in the fabric that you use, and I, following you, see that you use a lot of African fabrics. But your mother, you said, is from New Orleans,
Yes.
and that is a rich cultural legacy there. So,
Absolutely.
do you think about expressing that as well in your work in terms of fabric
Yes.
and fashion?
Absolutely. It was my mother who taught me to sew, and my grandmother as well. They were dressmakers. So actually, thank you for asking that, because you'll see another thing that's very different about my quilts. A quilt, usually it's made to keep you warm. It should be washable fabrics, cotton, something you're not gonna sweat under it at night. But my fabrics, the remnants that I got when I first started quilting in college, were given by my mother and my grandmother. So their remnants were silk and lace and gabardine and chiffon. Those were the remnants they had. So I used them in my first portrait quilts because I couldn't afford to buy fabric, and they already had it. They had been, anybody who sews, you save those remnants. And so each piece, when you see those bits of lace and chiffon and silk, I'm thinking about my mother and my grandmother and how they presented themselves and how they liked to dress. And each piece has a little bit of my grandma Violet and my mother Natalie. They're in there. And so, yes, all the time.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Well, I was going to ask if you had the cloth designed, because I saw the bamboo earrings,
Yes.
the triangle, and the other one. So now I got a better question. My other question then is, do you think, and I think the art teacher might have started you on the comment, going to a HBCU influenced the artist that you are, as if you had gone to a PWI, predominantly white institution. If you had gone to a PWI, do you believe you would have arrived somewhat here?
I don't think so, because my professors, Jeff Donaldson, Al Smith, Frank Smith, they were from Chicago, where they came out of the Chicago Black Power, Black Arts movement. And so they came in as young professors, throwing out. The previous arts curriculum before that would have been prescribed from Europe or the Beaux-Arts tradition. 1950s on a black college campus, you're still looking to Paris for the influence, and for, you would say, Monet, Manet, Michelangelo, these are the leaders. But my professors came in young in the 60s. They're like 30 years old with PhDs. They're coming fresh from Nigeria. They may have witnessed the revolutions in Ghana and Senegal, so they weren't having it. And they were like, oh, we want a black curriculum. Black American as a new curriculum. Not African, not European, but something new. So they came with a manifesto, and so I'm one of the students of that trickle-down manifesto. HU, hey Drew! And would I have gotten that at PWI? I doubt it. Because they wouldn't understand that me as a black American, when we watch TV, it's not the same as you all, especially in the 80s. I remember that Maybelline commercial with Christy Brinkley, and she would say, because I'm worth it, So it looks nothing like you. It's not the same when you're watching TV and nobody looks like you. And the prevalent culture is blonde hair, blue eyes, then that is beauty. If you know that you can't be that, and I can never be that, then how can I ever be beautiful? And I don't know if my other professor at a PWI would necessarily understand that. I'm not saying they won't. I'm saying, I don't know. I don't know. Would they understand that already the students are coming into the room thinking, I am not beautiful? And how do you have to correct that? and then go from there. But you can't just say, we're all the same, everybody's fine, I don't see your color, because some of the kids are coming into the room with a very low self-esteem, and it's been pervasive and drummed into them their whole life. Even me, being a dark-skinned person, was told like I wasn't supposed to wear yellow because it makes me look too dark. I should wear colors that blend, I guess, like dark green or dark blue or dark something. I couldn't wear white, I couldn't wear red, I couldn't wear hot pink. And it was black people who told me that. So at least Howard has a philosophy. It's not just being in an all-black environment that gives you that empowerment. Because I've worked in schools in urban America, and it's all black, but everybody in the room thinks that they're less than. And the only ones who are treated well are the ones who look closer to white. So, no, I don't think so. It would have been different. Huh? I don't know. One more? Yeah?
First off, thank you. This entire exhibition is incredible. Like, I actually had tears in my eyes looking at some of your work, so thank you.
Thank you.
So, from my understanding, textiles is not necessarily as prevalently seen in museums kind of across the world, and this is the first time I've seen textiles of this nature and magnitude, honestly, in my life. So again, thank you for that. But I'm curious, like, what do you see as next for this genre of art? What are you experimenting with? What can we hope to see from you in the future?
That's a big question. Thank you. I think that I know so many amazing textile artists and quilters that just from the genre alone, like, the world is not ready and they need to get ready, because the quilters have all been held back and basically like held in barricades. You're black or you're female or you make craft. It's Southern. This was the craft of poor people. So all that's been devalued. And people just aren't having it. And the artwork is beautiful, and now you don't need a museum or a gallery to let you exhibit. You can just post and people can see your work. So I see that as, I see the internet as very much a revolutionary tool in that way. And for me, what's next? The sky is the limit. I just barely touched the surface. Me being of African descent, there's so many amazing photographers across the continent. And my imagination ends in how many photographs could there be? I just learned of the photos of Doris Derby. I'm talking to the Kinsey family who is here, Mr. Bernard and Miss Shirley Kinsey. They have an amazing collection of images from Tulsa and from other black towns that were raised off the face of the earth. And I also have a big museum survey coming up in about a year and a half. So, thank you.
They keep giving me the mic back. All right. So I want to close with this question.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have one at first, but I do now.
Okay.
This is your first show in New York in about, how many years is
3
it?
years.
3 years?
Yeah. 4 years.
4 years. 4 years, corrected. 4 years, thank you. See, we got Google in the audience. How does it feel and what does it mean to be here right now?
It feels really good, first of all. I feel home. It feels amazing to be able to exhibit in the city where I've been in my whole life. I was born and raised in New Jersey, in South Orange. So South Orange. Hey, South Orange, Columbia High School. Absolutely, but New York is the industry. It's people work here every day. My husband worked here for more than, 25 years commuting. And it feels especially important to be in this space with Jeffrey in his gallery because he is a gallerist that has worked with people of color, have worked with the outsiders in, the graffiti artists, the self-taught artists, the artists who didn't fit the standard. And so it means a lot for me to be here at this moment with you all, like in my home.
Love it. And there you have it. There you have it. That is our talk. Thank you all so much for coming out.